Well, all right. We're here with Dr. Mary Carlson, a podiatrist in Willston Park in Long Island. Hi, Dr. Carlson.
Hi, Helmut. How are you?
Good. Dr. Carlson, as a podiatrist, obviously you're taking care of the feet, basically, make people, walking well, and lots of stuff is connected to the feet, as one can assume. There's lots of questions about orthotics. Those are the inserts, as I call them, and maybe has to do with wearing good shoes. Some shoes have kind of like, a better build and have somewhat an orthotic build in already. But in any case, there is very cheap ones on it. There is just little foam, like, a couple millimeters of something you sit on it. Can you shed some light on it of, what orthotics do and what bad ones don't do and all that type of stuff?
Sure, Helmut. Basically what an orthotic does is it actually corrects the structure of the foot and the way we walk. If you buy orthotics that are what we call prefabricated or off the shelf, they are actually just generalized arch supports and do not correct the function of the foot. When a patient comes in for custom molded orthotics, what we do is we actually do a biomechanical exam for the patient. We check the structure of the foot, and we make a mold of the foot, and in this mold we do the corrections to actually correct the way a patient walks so they walk correctly and do not have their deformities or problems reoccur or continue to occur.
Okay. Now, tell me what correctly walking, and I can see, and I think most people watching this video can somehow probably imagine that if you make something customized to your body, that it is probably a little bit better than something which is not customized. But what? Because when we think feet, most of us think very topically. Like if we have a pain in the hand, we think we have a pain in the hand when we don't. Or let's say people have a headache and they keep looking for headaches in the head, when really it starts maybe somewhere totally different in the spine or God only knows where. So tell us which parts are affected if these orthotics are not, or if the foot isn't properly working, meaning, is uneven or so. What does that orthotic fix, and what problems specifically can be avoided with them?
Okay, an orthotic generally corrects the way a patient walks. So if there is a problem with the way a patient walks, some type of pains that they could have or additional problems would be ankle pain, knee pain, hip pain, and lower back pain. What happens is the leg and the lower back are the kinetic chain which allows us to walk. So if any one of these portions are out of alignment, it could cause pain in one of those areas. So by realigning the foot and the patient walks correctly, it therefore realigns all the other joints, the ankle, the knee, the hip, and the lower back, thereby not creating stress on these areas which can lead to pain and arthritic changes.
I see. So if your foot is out of balance below the ankle, if you're not walking straight, maybe the foot is too long, maybe it is twisted or tweaked, which the orthotic then corrects. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Then, so if that is not
actually
done, go ahead.
I said what the orthotic corrects is the way the patient walks. It will correct if the patient pronates or pushes off in. It corrects if the patient supinates or walks on the side of the foot. If they don't have a heel-toe gait, it can also correct that problem too.
Okay. What's pronate and supinate?
Pronate is when the arch actually flattens when a patient walks and they roll off the inside of the foot. When a patient rolls off the inside of their foot, they have abnormal stress on the big toe, and that's one of the problems that leads to bunion formation and hammer toes. Now, when a patient supinates or walks in a supinated formation, they walk on the outside of the foot. And when they walk on the outside of the foot, again, that creates what we call a Taylor's bunion and other problems with the foot. So they're not walking in a corrected heel-toe gait.
So, and that basically means now the knee, somewhere along the line, has to adjust. It's like if you have a stick and it gets, tweaked somewhere out of the ankle at the bottom, it has to somehow get tweaked and bended all the way up in order to, at the top, arrive again at the same where it's supposed to be. So that means now you have wear and tear on the knee, and we know that a knee surgery or something like that will be eventually coming. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. What happens is it would put abnormal stress on the knee, and that would cause pain and deterioration of the knee joint. And then as you work up the leg, again, it could cause issues with the hip and the lower back. So if you do correct the way you walk, you can alleviate some of these problems from happening or correct some of that pain that you have at the moment if you have that type of pain. You know, the hip, knee, and lower back pain.
Well, you're stopping at the lower back pain. I can definitely see that. But wouldn't it make sense to me, that once the problem has worked its way up all the way to the lower back pain, wouldn't that create tensions in the shoulders, in the neck, and even headaches and stuff like that? Because it got to be, all the muscles and nerves got to be out of alignment at that moment. No?
Yes, it could. It actually, once you start walking and you start shifting your weight and you start getting lower back pain, you can throw out other areas of the back and the neck to cause muscle spasm. That is correct.
Wow. So basically it's like my car mechanic told me not too long time ago, if I don't put good tires on my car and have them aligned, no wonder that I'll end up in the ditch and the car isn't running smooth and all kinds of things are happening, because obviously, for the whole day you're putting 120, 180, whatever pounds on it all day long, and if that foundation, like a house foundation, isn't good, it makes lots of sense that everything else cracks, just like on a house foundation.
Yes, that's correct. And actually, when we walk, 3 times our body weight goes through our foot. So I'll just do easy math. Let's say somebody weighs 100 pounds. It's 300 pounds of pressure goes through the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hip, the lower back. So if that is malaligned, you're putting 300 pounds of pressure on these areas to create pain and, pain, aches and pains and problems.
Interesting. So maybe this huge amount of knee surgery which we see these days, only maybe, some of them could be avoided and eliminated by actually looking at the cause of it. Maybe the cause might not come from the knee, because I see lots of people getting that stuff, and they're not football players, they're not tennis players, they're not skiers, they don't do any of that stuff, right. And then they still get it. Maybe it's simply that, overall, eventually over time, your feet, where you put, it's really kind of 600 pounds or so, because most of us have more than 100 pounds, constantly and daily, that obviously if there's, I'm a mechanical machinery engineer, and I can know that when you have a bunch of hinges and cogwheels working together, if just one is a few millimeters off, that machine eventually cracks, and that's all there's to it.
Yes, and that's the excessive wear that you see on the joints, which causes arthritis, wearing away of cartilage, back pain. That's exactly right. I always equate that if you're not walking correctly, especially with the big toe, it's like a hinge. If a hinge on a door is off alignment and you keep using that, it wears away. And when that wears away, it's actually in the foot or any other joint, it's wearing away the cartilage. And then that is causing arthritis and then pain and future surgeries. So it is true that if you do have an orthotic and you realign the foot, thereby that realigns the other joints in the kinetic chain or the way we walk, you will prevent that arthritis from occurring and that wearing not from happening.
Well, that explains it, and that I think should answer the question of should one fiddle around with off-the-shelf orthotics, or should one just go and get actually the right measurements, because no engineer would just take an off-the-shelf part and replace it in a machine which might not fit. He would go for a very, very specific part and measure it and even have it custom made for it in order to keep the machine running. I got that. Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Carlson. I'm sure we'll be speaking more.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.